Last week, a pretty funny debate blew up on Twitter after a clip from an Indian guy went viral. In the video, he was complaining that white women don't want to date ethnic men like him. He blamed the whole thing on social conditioning and straight-up racism. The clip brought out a ton of copers from both sides of the argument, and it turned into a hilarious back and forth. Both camps were going at each other hard, but honestly, at the end of the day, they were all breathing from the same tank of copium. Guys like him are making a serious strategic error by accusing women of being racist just because they're not attracted to them. That defensive, accusatory mindset only makes your situation worse. You can't shame or guilt people into finding you attractive. It simply never works. I'm not racist at all. What are you even talking about? If someone isn't into you, they're not into you. That's it. Getting defensive and throwing around racism accusations is a massive strategic mistake for multiple reasons. First, there's no actual social conditioning that makes people dislike your face. Second, you end up annoying even apolitical people with that approach. And most importantly, it achieves the exact opposite of what you want, because women are never drawn to victims. When you frame yourself as a victim of racism in the dating market, you trigger a deep, primal level of disdain in women. Constantly repeating, "We're victims of racism," just leads to even more rejection. Having strict racial preferences is, 99% of the time, labeled as weird, racist, or both. The reality is that a lot of women do have those preferences, but they don't consciously think to themselves, "I wouldn't date an ethnic guy." Many normies do this subconsciously without even realizing it. In the interview, the guy asks women if they would date an Indian man, and almost all of them say yes. But when he follows up and asks if they've actually done it before, the answer is almost always no. You have to admit that dating is fundamentally different from other areas of life. It's not the same as refusing someone's service based on their background. You can't treat them as equivalent. Dating is deeply personal and intimate. People are slaves to their desires, and dating never lies. It's always more honest than what people claim verbally. When you make videos like this, you're not helping your own case at all. It just comes across as defensive and accusatory, like you're trying to guilt-trip people into dating Indian men. That approach annoys even people who aren't political. You know what? I actually think you're more racist than I am, because I'm not racist and I've never been racist. I'll never be a racist. I don't even know what that mentality means. You're asking me these questions. What exactly do you mean by mentality? Let's break down white supremacy first. White people control political power, narrative control, cultural legitimacy, institutional preferences, and dominance. And this guy isn't the only one doing it. Plenty of others pull the racism card when it comes to dating, which is a huge strategic mistake. Not only does it annoy people, but it also paints you as a victim. And women always choose the strongest option, not the victim. Victims are always looked down on and cast aside. I want to date within my own culture. Okay, that's completely valid. And you're not even part of that conversation. I would argue that's not really a racial preference at all. It's just a polite dog whistle term that normies use so they don't sound offensive. When they say, "I just want to date within my culture," it's usually code for race. Guys who openly say race X or race Y get attacked by people like this Indian guy, so they avoid saying it directly to prevent drama. My spirit wants to come out right now, but I'm doing everything I can to keep it contained. It's begging to come out, but I have to tell it, no, stay inside. There are definitely some aspects of attraction that come from nature, but a large part is also shaped by nurture. You are born with certain preferences. They literally originate in the temporal lobe of your brain. Even babies can recognize and prefer beautiful faces. This is something ethnic nationalists struggle to accept. The sense of beauty is hardwired into humans. There's a mountain of empirical evidence for this. The human brain makes a judgment about whether someone has an attractive face in just 13 milliseconds. That's why disproportionately big noses are widely considered unattractive across cultures, because they disrupt facial harmony and ratios. There's actual science behind this. No matter where or when you ask the question, the answer stays consistent. Go back 10,000 years, people would still pick the guy on the right as more attractive, just like they do today. This is exactly why blue eyes exist now. The first person with the genetic mutation for blue eyes 10,000 years ago didn't go extinct. That trait spread because people found it attractive. Many other mutations die out, and we never hear about them. Blue eyes could easily have disappeared since they don't serve any direct survival purpose. There are still societies around the world today where beauty standards differ significantly from Western ones. This is a favorite line normies like to repeat. Oh, beauty standards vary so much across cultures. But when you actually ask them to name those places, they usually can't. He tried to prove his point by putting up some meme pictures of traditional outfits, but most Japanese women don't walk around in kimonos every day. He clearly doesn't know much about those cultures. He just Googled some images. This guy should watch my video on Muzungu maxing. He'd see whether white men pull more in sub-Saharan Africa or guys with lip plates. Most regular people in those countries don't do that stuff, and it's definitely not the lip plate guys dominating the dating market there. His own examples actually work against him. Whether you look at sub-Saharan Africa, North Africa, Latin America, East Asia, South Asia, or Southeast Asia, the preferences are remarkably similar across the globe because beauty perception is largely innate in humans. You won't find any culture that consistently rates the picture on the left as more attractive than the one on the right. Here's the key point. I'm not saying you can consciously control what you're attracted to. Attraction is a deep instinctive reaction. But pretending that these preferences pointing toward Eurocentric features are completely natural and innocent is ridiculous. You don't naturally believe paler skin or smaller noses are more beautiful. Those ideas are heavily shaped by socialization. Two things can be true at the same time. You can admit you have no real control over your attractions because they're gut-level responses, while also recognizing that many of those preferences were formed through a lens of white supremacy and Eurocentrism. The next layer of coping is, oh, it's socialization, or it's the media. Guys, coping is like riding a bike. You have to keep pedaling or you fall. Media portrayal and socialization are results, not the root cause. There is simply no way to socially condition people into finding genuinely unattractive features, like a big nose or an asymmetrical face, desirable. That goes against human nature. These guys are just coping hard. They believe that throwing the word racist around will magically change how people feel on a primal level. It won't. First, you have to change the actual reality on the ground, and that's a long, multi-generational process. There's no media propaganda that can fix your height or your face. The second argument is that having exclusionary racial preferences is racist. Some people point out that there are Asians who look white, whites who look black, blacks who look white, and claim there's no genetic basis for race. So when someone says, I would never date a black woman, they argue that's racist because there are black women who look like anything. If you're attracted to someone and the only reason you lose interest is learning their race or ethnicity, then yes, that's racist. But the cope here is just sad. People aren't usually rejecting you after discovering you're Indian. They simply never felt primal attraction in the first place. If white women actually found you attractive but then backed off upon learning your ethnicity, you wouldn't be making angry TikTok videos about it. Especially in the West, women do what they want. There's no hidden barrier. People care about how you look. That judgment happens in 13 milliseconds. He also claimed there's no genetic basis for race, which is another intellectual blunder. He's just repeating talking points without thinking critically. This kind of thing happens more often than you think, though usually in a more subtle way. Yes, social aspects of your background can play a role in dating. That's the extrinsic part. Your position in the social hierarchy matters somewhat, especially for reducing stigma around dating out. But in most of the West, outside very conservative pockets, that stigma is already low. It has little to do with actual beauty standards. A disproportionately large nose that ruins facial ratios has nothing to do with media propaganda. No amount of media influence can turn an ugly face attractive. There is no social conditioning that overrides your looks. These guys need to stop shouting racism every time they pay the SMV tax in the dating market. Even if it were true, what good does calling it racism do? It only annoys people more and makes things worse for you. After getting roasted in the comments, he posted another angry follow-up video, doubling down on the same mistake. This guy has become the perfect poster child for white nationalism on Twitter. the so-called superior Aryan race we're supposed to admire. Even though he resorted to ad hominem attacks on Will's looks, he actually proved Will's point again. Yes, Will is overweight, but he still has a higher effective SMV than the Indian guy in question. An overweight 4'10" white dude like Will would still outrank him in most dating markets. The Indian guy has clear flaws: weak jawline, poor gonial angle, short chin, his chin to philtrum ratio looks below 2, and that prominent nose. He has some decent features that might put him above average for Indian men, but he's nowhere near an 8. Even if he were white with those same features, he still wouldn't be an 8. They even edited his chin and nose in the second picture, and he still didn't reach that level. Indian men on Twitter made memes clowning Will's looks, but the truth is Will would clean up in India and in many other countries. There isn't a single country on earth where Will would do worse than this Indian guy, and that's without any looks maxing. He's probably sitting at 30–40% body fat here. If he was white, he'd be an easy 8'10". Yet people still think whiteifying themselves would magically fix everything. That level of delusion is wild. If you actually believe that, please explain why you look the way you do right now. Not only is he wrong, but his analogies are terrible too. Yes, the picture on the right is significantly more attractive. Attacking Will's appearance doesn't disprove the point, especially when Will still outranks him in SMV. Making fun of his looks while he still mogs you tells you everything. Now, I'm going to say something that might sting. I'm currently dating a white girl, a brunette with blue eyes. He says it with such pride, like it's the ultimate flex. He was probably gesturing wildly while saying it. Most likely she's not even particularly pretty, just white with blue eyes. A lot of ethnic men tend to overrate white women and try extra hard to get one. Can you name a single prominent white nationalist who has an actually attractive wife? Take Nick Fuentes, for example. The lifestyle they promote often doesn't match their personal reality. The truth is, your political beliefs only affect your success with women marginally, if at all. There's a stereotype of right-wing guys with Asian girlfriends for a reason. Women don't care much about ideology when choosing partners. They follow their nature. White nationalist groups make the same error when they point to data showing white women are the least likely to date out. That's true, but it's not because of ideological loyalty. It's simply because, on average, they find white men more physically attractive. If white men looked like this Indian guy on average, white women would probably be the first group to date out aggressively, especially since they're the most feminist, liberal, and least religious demographic. Marriage is an outdated institution that I believe oppresses women, with a long history rooted in female oppression. I wrote off the idea of marriage when I was young after realizing what it really meant. In the end, both extreme sides were raging at me over this shoe theory discussion. They're all huffing from the same copium tank. That's how you know you're delivering real black pill truth, when copers from opposite ends are equally triggered. Ethnic men do face a significant tax on their SMV in the dating market. At the same time, being a low IQ, subpar white guy doesn't make you superior to high-value, good-looking ethnic men who are successfully dating attractive white women and living great lives. I managed to emotionally damage copers from both sides. They hate each other, but they both come after me because I call out everyone's bullshit without mercy. I'm not emotionally invested in any outcome, which lets me stay objective. The same thing happened with my Iran video. Iranian liberals lost it in the comments. Ethnic viewers, as a final message, please stop trying to guilt-trip women into dating you by calling them racist. It's extremely cringe and it's never going to work.